Reconvening. Okay, I'll ask everyone to join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We are going to take one item out of order because I know that we've got some folks here from 1600 Osgood Street and they've got to get to the planning board meeting, so they're on that agenda as well. So I will take this one public comment related to 1600 Osgood Street out of order.
Thank you, Madam Chair, the members of the board. For the record, John Smolak, attorney of Smolak and Vaughn, representing Hillwood Enterprises. With me this evening are representatives of the Hillwood project team, and that includes Gary Frederick, the Senior Vice President and Northeast Market Lead for Hillwood. At this time, I'd like to ask Gary if he could come up and introduce a few folks to the board. As you know, we've been working on a proposed redevelopment concept for 1600 Osgood Street for a number of months. And what we'd like to do is, again, introduce you to some members of the project team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The process continues. I think have continued to see progress on a number of the objectives for the project, and we are making progress for sure. But tonight I have the pleasure of introducing our tenant.
Great.
And with me tonight is Brad Griggs and Jeff Cleveland. And they work for Amazon.
Ah, very good.
And I appreciate your patience because this is a very big transaction, even for them. And we had to operate under non-disclosure agreements for quite some time that we all took very seriously, and appreciate your confidence and patience with us to get through that. I think John's got a few.
I think that was.
Yeah,
Hard to top that, John. Is
right.
Well, I can't top that.
Drop the mic now.
I know you eased us in. I'm not sure if you folks had any comments at all, or if you'd like.
Please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brad Griggs. I'm a senior manager in the economic development team on Amazon, and just want to thank you all for your time this evening. And we look forward to, as we continue our due diligence process alongside the Hillwood team and John on the site, to hopefully have a very successful partnership with the town of North Andover here, and look forward to continuing through this process and working together to hopefully bring this project to fruition.
Thank you. We're very excited.
Yeah, we certainly look forward to working with you. Now, I have to ask you, are you out of the Seattle office? Did you bring this lovely weather with you?
Yes.
This is a little bit not seasonal, even for New England.
Yeah, I'm based out of our New York offices, and Jeff's out of DC, but yeah, the Seattle weather seems to follow me around lately ever since I've joined the company, so hopefully brighter days ahead.
I think it was just like this the last time I was here, as a matter of fact. And I'm from South Carolina. It's not like this in South Carolina today, but.
Well, you brought a little sunshine into the town with this announcement, so we really, as the other members said, and we really look forward to working with you. So.
Thank you very much.
So a couple of big Amazon today. You had groundbreaking in Boston, and then this is great. Love to hear it.
We use the analogy of we're trying to land a big plane, like a big project here, and we've got to get through. We've got to be able to see the runway. And so we've checked off a lot of boxes. Coming back for the special town meeting on June 18th, we'll check a few more off the list. And I think Chairman mentioned that, you know, this is the zoning amendment, and that we still have step after step after step that follows, and we're here for the long haul to do what we can to make it happen, and appreciate your.
Very excited about having you guys. So just so the public is aware, the public hearings for the zoning amendment changes for the, that will be on the special town meeting warrant are starting tonight. That's where these guys are going to go next, to the planning board meeting. So for folks who want to follow that, I think the planning board's got this on the next 3 meeting agendas to review those changes, and we'll be opening the warrant tonight with those amendments on the warrant. And also, I was hoping you guys could give an announcement as to the 2 public sessions. I know I got a letter in the mail, and I know probably everyone else in town did, but if you want to give those dates.
Sure. We are having, we're calling it an informal public forum tomorrow night at the VFW, and then Sunday afternoon as well. It's hopefully have a chance to field some good questions, and we'll do our best to give good answers.
So if by chance they didn't happen to get the notice in the mail, we will have that on the website, the town website, so that people can click on. So that
It's
would be
been on
great.
Facebook, it's been
Facebook.
everywhere.
Yeah, okay.
I'm
Great.
sure you'll have some good to know. Wonderful. Well, thank you guys for joining us tonight. We're obviously very excited to know that it's Amazon, and we welcome you, and hopefully we can get through all these meetings and get the process rolling.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
in.
See you for letting us cut in, and
Absolutely.
apologize.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we will go back to our regular agenda, starting with the swearing in. So first we have firefighter Nick Martone.
Paul's got to get to the press. Hopefully you heard it correctly.
We also have very exciting news tonight.
Yes, you always do. You never come without exciting
Equally
news.
exciting.
so
I know that.
Hopefully you guys can make it to the entire meeting tonight,
Yeah.
or the entire swearing in.
So tonight,
Seriously.
we're here to swear in firefighter Nick Martone. Nick was hired April 30th, 2018. Nick started the fire academy on September 4th on 2018. On September 13th, Nick was returning home from the fire academy. He was in one of the fire department vehicles and was listening what was happening on September 13th with the gas incident. As Nick was making his way back to the fire station, because he knew he was going to be needed, he drove up Green Street when he came upon the house fire at 65 Green Street, which was Selectwoman Rosemary Smedley's home. Nick stopped. He saw a out-of-town mutual aid engine from Middleton there. Stopped, introduced himself, told him he was a North Andover firefighter just coming back from the fire academy. He didn't have his gear because it was at the fire academy, but what do you need? They asked him, do you know how to run an engine and pump water? He said, we went over it this week. So they put him to work pumping water at that fire. Nick spent the remainder of that night at that incident. So it just shows the example of the quality people that we are putting on the fire department. He graduated November 19, 2018. He graduated with a 93% on his exams. We always ask lieutenants of the firefighter if they could write a few words about him. So his first lieutenant was Lieutenant John Ware. Before he went to the fire academy, he was assigned to Lieutenant Ware on Unit 2. Lieutenant Ware says, over the last year, I have had many opportunities to work with Nick, from his initial orientation and training days at the fire department to working alongside of him at emergency scenes. His positive attitude and strong work ethic has made him a welcome addition to the North Andover Fire Department. He is always involved in training, asking pertinent questions, and being one of the first to volunteer for tasks. His current lieutenant is Lieutenant Jeff Gartside, who's Unit 1, downtown Station 1. I've had the pleasure of working with Nick for the past 5 months. Nick is a valued Unit 1 member and a great addition to the department and the town of North Andover. Nick is a hardworking, highly motivated individual. He is always willing to lend a hand to fellow employees and go the extra mile to better himself. One event in particular comes to mind. Nick had been at his desk for a while in his room, and I was curious about what he was up to. Come to find out, Nick was studying the streets in town and making flashcards to assist him. This is just one example of his dedication to the job and his overall work ethic. Nick is always eager to train and learn, striving to improve at every shift. The fire department and the town of North Andover are lucky to have him. Nick will be receiving badge 42. I want to thank retired Deputy Chief John McGuire, who always does our history of the badge. Badge 42, Rich Bradley was the first firefighter to wear badge 42. Firefighter Bradley had worn badge 42 since 1984 to 2017, serving for 33 years, 7 months, and 24 days. Nicholas Martone is the second firefighter to wear badge 42. Fire Martone was presented the badge 42 on May 28, 2019, at his swearing in as a firefighter. And tonight, his wife Sharon will be getting the badge on Nick. But first, we're going to have Joyce come up. And I want to thank Joyce again for always being part of this for us.
This is just an honor and a privilege to be able to do this, because we go back right to the very beginning, having met you, and coming to this day. It's just a wonderful, wonderful benefit to the town. If you would mind raising your right hand and repeat after me. I, state your name,
I, Nicholas Martone,
solemnly promise
solemnly promise
and affirm that I will faithfully, honestly, sincerely, and impartially perform all the duties that are incumbent upon me as a firefighter for the town of North Andover. So help me God.
Great job.
Oh, that was well done. Usually
I
there's more
know,
of a struggle.
She was practicing.
Well, I said I would put Nick on the spot. He said today, he said, I don't have to get up and say anything. I said, no, if you don't want to, you don't have to. He just leads by example, so we
Madam
really
Chair,
appreciate him.
If you would indulge me for just 1 minute. I did not know that you were at my house.
Yeah.
And, they're all great, and I have such respect for all of you, and to know that you were there. Thank you very much.
A couple, quick announcements. May 24th, last Friday, Dan Nicolosi graduated from the Fire Academy. So he is still in his year probationary period, but he'll be coming before the board very soon. We have firefighter Josh Breeding, who will be going to the Fire Academy beginning first week of July. And we have a new firefighter, James Severino, who's in his 3rd week with us, and he's in in-house training right now. So a lot going on in the fire department. So thank you again for having us. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And they made it
Scott,
through without having
have a
to
good night.
leave. I know.
Goes with the job.
The public isn't working?
No?
Well, usually people can't wait to get out of here. Hello. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't. Is Caesar here? Oh, they're coming in.
Next shift.
Yeah.
That's good.
Great, okay, next up on our agenda is the swearing in of a new police officer. We have Chief Gray here too.
Talk about just in time.
Yeah.
I'm here to introduce Officer Cesar Quinones. Did I say it right? Yep. Thank you. Just graduated the academy in Haverhill recently, and he's been working a shift. In fact, tonight, he found himself at Berry Street for a medical assist where he had to transport a person in the back of an ambulance because she was in custody. And I'll just say right away, first of all, what an asset it is to have a Spanish-speaking officer, because when you have Spanish people that, you know, want someone to talk to in their, because English is not their first language, it's unbelievable to have an asset such as Caesar. Second thing is he's a military veteran, 6 years in the, 5 in the National Guard, 1 in the Army, served in Kuwait. Tremendous asset to the department. He's already making a difference for us, and it is an honor to have him sworn in tonight.
Great.
Joyce?
Wonderful.
I'm going to be sworn in with her.
Again, this is a real honor and a privilege to have you here and to be able to swear you in. If you wouldn't mind raising your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
Cesar Quinones,
Solemnly promise
solemnly promise
and affirm
and affirm
that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
honestly,
honestly,
sincerely,
sincerely,
and impartially
and impartially
perform all the duties
perform all the duties
that are incumbent upon me
that are incumbent upon me
as a police officer
as a police officer
for the town of North Andover.
for the town of North
So
Andover.
help me God.
So help me God.
His wife Maria's going to pin his badge on him.
Okay.
Have him sign.
Just sign them right here. After you,
Outstanding. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for
Thank you,
your
guys.
service. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
And good luck and be careful. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay.
Okay, can anybody else top all the good stuff we've got right?
So the next item on our agenda is public comment. I will welcome any general public comment now about anything on our agenda or anything else anyone wants to get off their mind.
Jim LaFawn, 329 Osgood Street. I've already talked to the chairwoman about this. I find it a little difficult to do public comment. I'm not really even sure if, you know, what I'm commenting on is on the agenda, but my interest lies tonight in the Stevens estate and the proposed sale or leasing to other parties. I'm opposed to the sale or the leasing of the estate, and I wished and had asked actually at other meetings that there be a public forum where there could be questions back and forth.
To that point, sorry, I'll just address that right now. I am planning on our next meeting agenda, June 3rd, to have Elegant Banquets come and give a presentation of their proposal, and then we will do sort of like a public hearing style format where the public can ask questions of Elegant Banquets or us, and we will respond in turn. So I'm planning for that to be the June 3rd meeting, taking into your account feedback that you gave me regarding that. But we don't have Elegant Banquets on the agenda tonight, which is...
No, I understand that, but I think, respectfully, I think the cart is before the horse. What I was looking for is, I mean, I was here at the presentation done by Elegant Banquets the other day, and I think it was a good presentation. They appear to be a very professional firm that do things very well, although I haven't personally vetted them. But the question for me more is, and I was hoping to hear more from other town officials and other residents of the town, whether or not the question is, should we sell or should we lease it? To invite Elegant Banquets in, as they were here the other day, and have residents like myself put them in a tough position. They're not interested, and nor should they be, and it puts them in a tough position when there's, you know, argument or discussion between opposing parties as to what, it almost makes it look like it's a done deal. You're bringing them in to discuss what they're going to do, when I'm still back at, you know, first base, not understanding why we're doing this completely, not understanding what the rationale is, why the Board of Selectmen has determined that after 25 years it's all of a sudden onerous budget-wise, when, you know, I do read the reports that our town managers have given us, and you give them high marks for our fiscal responsibility. We're in a great position. You know, they're great. I just don't understand why after 25 years we've arrived at this point. And there's been no place where I can come as a citizen and say, please tell me, you know, let's get down into the nitty-gritty. Where are the numbers? And then what do other people have? We could have, at the last town meeting when the articles were withdrawn, we could have had the moderator, I'm sure he would have accommodated us, and said, let's do a straw poll. How many people have an interest in this? How many people would like to see more discussion? Maybe I'm the only person out there that wants to see that. I don't know. But again, what it apparently to me is, it's going to force the discussion to town meeting. And I will discuss it at town meeting again if that's the only forum that I'm going to have to discuss it. Again, it feels to me, I know it's been on your radar for, I guess, a couple of years now, but I don't really think, in all fairness to the residents of North Andover, and again, it's some of our fault, but the word has not gotten out to us as to the whys, whens, hows of why this needs to be done. So that's my comment for tonight, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Just to the point for anyone watching, we can certainly in the June 3rd meeting talk about why sell it versus not, or sell or lease it versus not. I respect your view, but I've had other people who've come to me and say, well, how can I form an opinion if we should sell it or lease it when I have no idea who you'd sell it or lease it to? So who we are selling or leasing it to and for what end purpose has been extremely relevant to other people, and have said, I could never make that decision. I could never vote to sell it or lease it until I had some idea of to whom you were going to sell it and for what their vision was. So it's a balancing act. I respect your view, but I have to balance all the views I'm hearing and try and come up with the best approach for people to get the information and make their comments. So I welcome you back in the June 3rd meeting. I'm sure you'll come, and we will have a full discussion, a public hearing style discussion at that time. Okay. Any other public comments? Okay, moving on. We have the approval of our meeting minutes.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
motion approval of May 14th, 2019 open session minutes as written.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item, we have the request of Lawrence Leeds to fund a portion of their regional needs assessment of the opioid crisis. I think Lori forwarded to us some details of that. Maybe you can give us a quick overview, Lori, a few sentences.
Yes, so I think most of you know Jacinia Gill. She's not here. She might have thought the meeting was at 7, so.
So do you, might I make a suggestion that we table this discussion and take some of the other consent items
Sure.
where folks are here?
Yeah, let's do
Out
that.
of order?
Okay, so next item, we have the request of the North Andover Merchants Association to use the town common for the Fall Festival on September 21st from 10 to 4 p.m. at a closed Mass F.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Chris Palermo. I'm the president of the North Andover Merchants Association. Like you had mentioned, we're looking to ask permission to do, I think it's our 9th year doing the Fall Festival. We've only been doing it on the Common for a few years, but it's been a great success. We've had great weather every year. Hopefully the Amazon weather stays in Seattle, though, not like this. But yeah, if we could have permission for that, and also the closure of Mass Ave from the lights at Osgood to Academy, which we've done in the past for parking.
Yeah, having attended that Fall Festival every year that it's been put on, I would strongly make the motion to approve the request of the North Andover Merchants Association for use of the town common and closure of the roadways for the date specified.
I'll second that. And in full disclosure, Madam Chair, I'm a member of the Board of Directors with no financial interest in the North Andover Merchants Association.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would suggest we also take item E while Mr. Palermo is at the podium.
Great, wonderful, thank you. Item E is accept a donation for the North Andover Merchants Association in the amount of $870 for the fire department SAFE program. I saw a posting on that on Facebook, in fact.
Yeah, we're going to do another post on that on our page. We did the coloring books for the kids with the Merchants Association sponsorship on it, but we continue to support that program, so hopefully.
Great, thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval. The Board of Selectmen accept the donation of $870 from the North Andover Merchants Association to the fire department to be used for the SAFE program.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
So going back to item C, we had a request from Columbia Gas to excavate on Rhea Street for the purpose of installing a new gas line. I actually asked Lori to suggest to them that we would continue this item because I would like more information from the DPW regarding the oversight that would be occurring at that site. I mean, this is the first instance of an excavation for gas that we've had since the disaster, so.
It's possible that it might not be needed because I don't believe that the town has accepted Ray Street.
Ah, okay, well then,
So
we can wait.
that's what I found out
So we
from Jim
need to get
Stanford,
that.
the DPW director, when I spoke
Yeah.
with him this afternoon after I spoke with you.
Okay.
He was gonna talk with them, but he didn't think that it was an accepted public way.
Oh, great, okay, well, maybe not great, but, so, for future reference, I talked to Lori about talking to Jim about, previously, we would give approval for something like this, and then there would be a street opening permit. But I was thinking maybe we would want them to come to us after getting a street opening permit, perhaps, so that we are sure that all of the DPW conditions are agreed to prior to us giving approval. I'm trying to add a layer of, knowledge and understanding.
Jim did not want to reverse the
Okay.
process, because I don't think that they would give the street opening permit till they knew that you were okay with it.
Okay,
But
all right, so.
But your approval,
seems logical, but.
your approval
Okay.
would be subject to
The street opening permit. So maybe for a subsequent meeting, we can get just a review of what the street opening permit
Right.
will include, and just so we have a level of comfort and knowledge when we're giving this, that what's going to happen with Columbia Gas going forward.
And still
Okay.
subject to.
Yeah.
So you're gonna move this to the June.
So we're going to move this item anyway till whenever Rhea Street is accepted and,
Right.
yeah, okay. So next item, appointment to the Cultural Council. Does anyone want to say a couple
Yeah,
words?
so we continue, Selectman Valencourt and I, to interview wonderful folks, just really amazing, the folks who are coming to volunteer. And Liz Santana came in, very enthusiastic, really ready to roll up her sleeves. And so we felt that given all her interest, there was a good match on the Cultural Council. And so with that, we placed her in nomination here.
So, Madam Chair, I'll move that we, the Board of Selectmen, appoint Elizabeth Santana to the Cultural Council for a term ending, let me just get that,
21.
Okay, June 30th, 2021.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Good to have you,
Thank
Liz.
Elizabeth. Okay, next item is to accept a grant from the Essex County Community Foundation in the amount of $21,500 to support mental health first aid access. I don't know if Lori or Lynn can provide a little bit more insight as to.
This was a grant issued to Deanna
Right.
Lima. It used to be a
Deanna.
different name, and I just realized she changed her name. That must have got married or something, which will help her in her support of the mental health throughout the town and the community
Great.
with the school and things like that. It's a great achievement for her to receive this grant, and she hasn't given us the complete details of how she's going to be using these funds, but once I get an update on that, I can, again, update the board as well
Okay.
at the next meeting.
Great.
She should be congratulated on receiving this, for sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely a
But-
good
so
thing.
Is this
Yes.
money, Essex County Community Foundation, is this money from the, probably gas
No.
funding? Okay.
Nope,
All right.
nope, this is from it's the Lawrence Emergency Fund. It's not, I don't think, related to the gas.
Okay.
Nope,
They might take advantage of some of it.
maybe.
Well, given how, when she was here at a previous meeting, really talk about the breadth of what she's been
Yes.
doing in the town, how many people she's assisting, and how efficient she is.
Yeah.
It's wonderful that there are more resources for her. So I would move that the Board of Selectmen accept the grant from the Essex County Community Foundation in the amount of $21,500 to support mental health first aid access.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is a waiver of the right of first refusal to an affordable unit resale at 178 Cortlandt Drive, Unit 34. This is we typically waive this right of first refusal.
Move approval?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Sorry? Oh, yes, sorry, did she walk in? Great. So back to A is the request of Lawrence Leeds to fund a portion of the regional needs assessment for the opioid crisis. Hi.
Good evening, great timing. I do apologize, I read the sign saying the board meeting, I didn't see planning, and I went to the school administration building.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And didn't see any familiar faces. And here I am. But thank you so much for your time. Good evening. Most of you know that my name is Jasenia Gill, and usually you see me standing here in front of you representing some of the work that I do through Bread and Roses Housing in North Andover. But today I'm not here representing Bread and Roses Housing per se. I'm here representing a cross-sectoral collaborative effort. This effort actually took place last year when I and 20 other business and community leaders in Lawrence were selected for a leadership program that was led by the Lawrence Partnership in collaboration with the Harvard Business School and the Alliance for Business Leadership in Boston. The first ever cohort came together for a 7-month period through classroom and field learning. Themes of economic opportunity and civic engagement were incorporated in each module of the program. And at the end of the program, the cohort was asked to apply what they had learned to their respective organizations and to newly formed cross-sectoral project teams to address some of our community's most challenging economic and social issues. I decided to join the Greater Lawrence Opioid Alliance. The Alliance currently consists of a group of community leaders that represent healthcare, education, private business, social services, and public safety. However, the ultimate goal of the Alliance is to have a multi-community, cross-sectoral, collaborative effort around the opioid epidemic. I've actually forgot to provide you, but I do have our one-page fact sheet for all of you today, and it has basically all of the information about the Alliance, including what our problem statement is, which reads, the national opioid crisis has negatively affected the health, safety, and prosperity of the residents. and business community in and around Greater Lawrence. Despite efforts made by many, more effective collaboration and coordination is needed to address this problem. The fact sheet also describes the overarching vision of the Alliance. The first is to become the top opioid working collaborative in the Commonwealth. The second is to decrease the supply and demand, resulting in at least 50% less crime, overdoses, and deaths. To expand coordinated services to better the needs throughout Lawrence, North Andover, Haverhill, Methuen, and Andover. And to institute a coordinated functional network seen as the gold standard for systemic change for the opioid crisis. Finally, the fact sheet, which again I will distribute shortly, details the initiatives the Alliance is working on. The first initiative, and the reason why I stand here today, is to conduct an environmental scan. And I'll get back to that shortly. The second initiative is a symposium, which will be held October 28th and 29th. And this symposium will focus on sharing resources and brainstorming better ways to collectively address the opioid crisis. Confirmed speakers for the event are Congresswoman Lori Trahan and Michael Botticelli, who is the former director of the Office on National Drug Control Policy under the Obama administration. Members of the Alliance believe an environmental scan which compiles current rates for opioid use, overdoses, fatalities, emergency room admission, drug-related crime rates, and identifies community-based substance treatment services in the Greater Lawrence area is integral to the success of the symposium. Earlier this year, the Alliance requested proposals from health-related research firms, and 2 firms submitted proposals. The firm selected, Market Decisions Research from Portland, Maine, submitted the lowest bid of $25,000. The Alliance has raised $15,000 from an institutional anchor in Lawrence and is here today to ask the town to join the multi-community collaborative effort by designating key stakeholders to represent the interests of North Andover on the Alliance, as well as to respectfully request the $10,000 to close the gap on the environmental assessment. I have a copy of the proposal by Market Decisions Research and the fact sheet that I mentioned for your review, and I'm here to answer any potential questions you may have. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
A question perhaps for the town manager and town council. Do we have the ability to allocate money in a selectmen's meeting for an initiative like this? It has to be done through town meeting.
Request the town manager to find funding in the operating budget somewhere for it, I believe, as a...
So we have the town council here that can provide
Can
clarity
we?
to this.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So typically, you would have to have an appropriation for a particular purpose, but as long as there is within the operating budget, appropriation for the general terms, as the town manager was saying, then there could be that funding for this process. But typically, what we would do is we would have some sort of application process, review process, and that would be more of an administrative task than a policy-making task of the Board of Selectmen.
So, Yesenia,
Yes.
you had said there's a gap of $10,000. What other communities are participating in this program?
We are currently outreaching to Andover, all of the communities that I mentioned, Andover, Haverhill, as well as Methuen. Today's the first stop, and I apologize that the rest of the cohort could not make it. There were a few meetings that were already established, and they weren't able to attend and represent the Alliance this evening. But we are, again, outreaching to all of those communities that I mentioned because it is a cross-community, we hope it's a cross-community collaborative effort.
So it would just be, though, those 4 communities, or are there other communities you'd be hoping to bring into this?
So Lawrence, and $15,000 is coming from that community. Again, and North Andover, Haverhill, and Methuen, and that's just to start. We think keeping it in the Greater Lawrence area and hopefully expanding it into Merrimack, the full Merrimack Valley would be the second step, but initially the thought is to begin here in Greater Lawrence area.
So you're requesting $10,000 for each one of those other communities as well, or? Or is that or is that, you're looking to get $10,000 combined from all of those communities?
Great question. The gap is $10,000, and this is just the gap for the assessment. We also have the symposium, which we're estimated will cost about $50,000. So every community that we speak with, we are hoping they will fund a portion of the initiatives that I just mentioned today, not just the assessment, but also the symposium.
So it would be, if there's $10,000 for the assessment, it'd be $2,500 apiece for the assessment, and then have you estimated the cost, $50,000 for the symposium, so
Yes.
You could
another.
potentially be coming back and with another request for the symposium.
Yes, indeed. I may be coming back with a request for the symposium. We're hoping to begin funding the symposium through grants. We have a meeting with RISE Massachusetts, who is a nonprofit that focuses directly on the work that we're doing, and we have a meeting with them next week. We hope to raise most of the funds for the symposium through that nonprofit. And so initially, we are asking all of the communities that we hope, again, will sit and represent their community on the Alliance with a small portion to fund the needs assessment initially.
Well, I think it's certainly a very worthy cause, because obviously we all know that, and I think most of us have been affected by the crisis. So I certainly would support that. I think so my intent would be to make a motion to ask the town manager to find a way of providing the amount that we decide on to help fund this assessment.
Second. So,
I haven't.
okay.
So I think
motion
you're
made and
looking.
seconded, so we need a discussion,
Well,
I guess, on the amount.
So my recommendation would be $2,500
Yeah.
as 1/4 of the $10,000 that's being sought, and then hopefully the other communities will step up and also match that amount.
But you said you're also trying to include Lawrence as well.
Yes, the mayor, of course, right off the heels of the great collaborative efforts between Andover and North Andover during the gas emergency, really wanted us to focus Greater Lawrence, in Greater Lawrence, even though initially the thought was to be more Lawrence-centric. The mayor felt that after such a wonderful collaboration between the surrounding communities, that this issue really, unfortunately, impacts all of the communities, not just Lawrence, and wanted it to be more of a collaborative effort. So his charge to us was bring in the other communities, and he will absolutely, is at the table, but wants to be at the table with funding as soon as we can bring all of the communities to the table as well.
But Lawrence isn't providing funding for this?
They have not funded this yet. The $15,000 is actually coming from the anchor institution, and I'll hand this out shortly, the Greater Lawrence Family Health Center, which provides services in the Greater Lawrence area, and they have actually donated $15,000 to support this.
Okay, so I understood it. I thought the $15,000 was coming from Lawrence. So I would suggest an amendment then that we contribute $2,000 to the funding to support the regional needs assessment regarding the opioid crisis, and then hope and challenge the other communities, Andover, Lawrence, Methuen, and Haverhill, to also contribute $2,000.
So there's an amendment for $2,000. Do we have to have a second for an amendment? I don't.
Yeah, well, it's almost like he withdrew his first amendment.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay.
And so now.
I don't know that we had a second on the first one anymore.
Yeah, it was.
All right, so there's a motion for
$2,000.
And a second. Okay. Any further discussion on that? I think it's also a very worthy cause, so. All right, all in favor? Aye. Any
Thank you
opposed?
for your support and your challenge to the other communities. I look forward to meeting with them shortly.
So what happens in the event that the other communities don't buy into it?
We will continue to raise through grants, but I'm pretty certain, just based on informal conversations, at least with Lawrence, obviously, and potentially Andover, that we will have them coming to the table. The only community that we haven't actively had conversations with is Methuen. So that's our challenge, to reach out to them and to bring them to the table as well.
So hypothetically, if Andover, North Andover, and Lawrence approves the funding, will the study still include Haverhill and Methuen as well? Again, using the 5 communities we're discussing.
We're hoping that it is, again, a cross-community effort, so we will absolutely make every effort to include those communities in the assessment. If it means that we are writing grants that are focused on those areas, there are many foundations that focus on Haverhill-specific projects, Methuen-specific projects, that we would outreach to those foundations to ensure that their part is covered in the assessment. We're hoping that the data should be a full picture of the region, and eliminating some of the communities that may not step up to the plate would not be the best idea. We're hoping it does not come to that, and we will actively work to ensure that every community is represented in the assessment, and that they are all contributing to the assessment as well.
The only reason why I focus on that is because we are the smallest community by far, and there's at least one community in there. I mean, that, and I don't want to pick on any community, but there are some communities that experience this at a far greater rate, and of course are more than double the population of North Andover. And so for us, with our smallest municipal budget and relatively the smallest impact, we haven't even seen a plan how this will work with other communities. We haven't spoken to our other community stakeholders in this. We haven't even consulted with our own in-house person. So if possible, could we additionally direct either Deanna and just to discuss this more about how we will integrate into this program? Because I think there's always the fear that we'll be part of a regional collaborative, but being the smallest community, we get shortchanged.
Right, and I do have a question as far as, will we receive any type of reporting on this on a regular basis? I mean, how is that being tracked?
Absolutely, that's the important part of having Deanna, which I have reached out to her, but we haven't really, unfortunately, synced up our calendars to have an official meeting, and Lori made the connection. Thank you, Lori. To have someone representing North Andover to ensure that all of your interests are met in this assessment, this environmental scan, and absolutely meetings, stakeholder meetings before this plan actually is underway take place. There is a final report to all of the communities, in addition to a final presentation by the firm on all of the data. Yes.
Yeah, that was basically my question too. I was hopefully you were gonna come back and give us a readout on the assessment, so.
The firm will actually do that, as they are more experienced in those matters. But certainly there will be, again, an actual report as well as a meeting to report the findings.
Great. Could I make a motion then that we, as a board, we wait to release, or the town manager, we wait to release funds until we get feedback from our community support coordinator about how we would be integrated into this program as well?
Certainly. Yep.
Yeah.
We can talk with her next week.
I was about to say the same thing, and to your point, if we're the ones who are contributing money and the others do not, then we might want to rethink that altogether. But I don't think that's going to happen. The amount is so small. But I think your
the principle
point,
that we're the smallest one, and we're ready to pony up, and we're willing to work together, but.
Well, maybe we'll lead by example.
I think it's a great principle in leading by example.
But I think you've made some good points.
Yeah, me too.
Give them incentive to join.
It is a great incentive. And having stood here before you, I know that I will work extremely hard to make sure that all of the communities are at the table and participating, again, financially as well as a stakeholder in the alliance.
So do you want to so Phil made a motion that we hear from Deanna, have the opportunity to talk about how
I'll
she's going to.
second that unless somebody else already did.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
So the motion was what, clarify for me?
Just before we release any funds, to get feedback from Deanna. So I didn't realize Deanna changed her name, so Deanna Cruz. that Deanna Lima. So to get feedback from Deanna on how we as a community would be integrated into this project.
Absolutely.
Not just with the stats that are released, but also just how we participate in the actual
So would
study
we
itself.
then vote again to release the funds? Is that what you're suggesting? By making this motion, what's the teeth in it? Are we asking to hold off on funding or releasing these funds until we get a satisfactory, and so we're gonna have to vote again? Or are we just giving the authority to the town manager?
I suppose-
to release it based on the.
We could take no action. I mean, the motion's already been made to release funds. My motion that was seconded was, before we release those funds, though, we just hear from Deanna.
Before Lynn releases the funds.
Yes.
So it's no further vote for us, but Lynn, our new town manager, has to be satisfied that.
Well, I'd like us to hear. Yes, I'd like us
to.
that we collectively that we hear. I mean, I'm interested in this topic, and
Would you like Deanna to come to a June 3rd meeting to give her response to this?
if she's on
Well,
June 3rd?
I don't know if she'll have time. I mean, June 3rd's kind of quick. I assume you're meeting with, because, I mean, at that point, maybe it would be nice to understand, too, how the other communities have reacted.
Absolutely.
So we'll have another meeting when Deanna's back, and
An update from the
and
Alliance
there's
on.
been a chance to
Mhm.
have the other feedback from the other communities.
So can
think
I
that's
ask
fair.
one more question? Is there a timeline on when you need to start this process, or what is the goal as to when you want to start?
The goal is to start immediately. As I mentioned, we feel the environmental scan is integral to the symposium in October, and having all of that data will really drive the symposium. So yes, time is of the essence, but they can start their work with a retainer as we begin to meet with the communities and raise the funds. So I think that we can certainly give them the green light, feeling confident that we're bringing all of the communities to the table. And this is a process that takes about 60 days to complete. So again, I feel confident that having the conversations with all of the communities involved, we will have the funding that we need for the assessment within those 60 days.
Thank you.
Okay, so the motion was made and seconded regarding Deanna's input and hearing back from her. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank
Great.
you so much.
Thank you.
And just as a point of clarification, will Deanna be the point person for the Alliance representing the town?
I think so.
Yes,
We'll determine
okay,
that.
I want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your support and your time this evening.
Thank you.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, next item on our agenda, I guess, should we take licensing out of order? Are these guys here for? Yeah. Well, I don't know. Yeah, okay, forget it. Okay, the next item is our special town meeting warrant. Do we have a motion to?
Move to open the warrant for the 2019 special town meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so this is the first time we're seeing the warrant. So as we expected, we have the articles for 1600 Osgood that are currently being seen by the planning board. So I wasn't planning on us having a discussion on these zoning articles because we obviously wait till the planning board's had their review of them.
This just came through not too
Yeah.
long ago, so yeah, I agree with you on that.
Then there's an article that we will also be adding regarding the extension of the sewer line, which we don't have yet.
It's in.
It's there?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
It's
I'm
number
looking
4.
at an old version. Sorry. I always do that. Where is that grade? Oh. Okay, well, anyway, I don't have it up on my
Okay.
screen, but do we?
So it's
Yeah.
the approval
you.
for the borrowing for the sewer line. We're expecting that the cost for that is probably going to be about $7 million, which would be, the understanding is that we are also going to file for a MassWorks grant. and we would be splitting the cost for the sewer line a third, and a third, meaning the town, $1,600 Osgood, and the MassWorks grant. And that would run the sewer line from $1,600 Osgood all the way up 125 to the China Blossom, which would then allow, of course, any businesses along that area to connect if they needed to, or any vacant lots to connect at some point, and bring further.
That total project is expected to be $21 million, and so the $7
No,
million.
seven.
No, seven.
No, seven.
Okay, so
the
we're-
way we.
6 or something.
Right, so we wouldn't be able to proceed with it unless we had the approval for the full amount, even though we know we're gonna get reimbursed from $1,600 Osgood and the MassWorks grant. We would only borrow our share. This is just the approval, because it would be a town project.
Okay.
It's, we'd have to,
And, correct me if I'm wrong, but the town, our eventual portion, we have adequate funds in the sewer.
probably,
Enterprise
by the
fund.
time this gets going, yes,
Right.
to fund some of it through retained earnings,
Right,
yes.
thank you,
But it
Yep,
is-
and
but
there
it-
would be no,
But it is reimbursable. It will be-
Our
Our
portion of it.
portion, yes, would be reimbursed, correct?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean by our portion.
I thought that's what you had just said.
So it would
Say
be,
again, please.
we would only, if we had to borrow any portion of it, it would only be 1/3.
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
Of the $7 million.
Of the $7 million, correct, because the rest of it would be paid by the other two parties.
Yeah.
Yep,
So we wouldn't be reimbursed that, we're saying we
Same.
could, that 1/3, we could actually
That's what
fund
we
with
would-
retained earnings.
Right.
By the time it comes to the point of
point of
needing to pay.
actually doing this project.
Right.
because
So our
I'm
portion
guessing-
would be about 2.3 million, and that's what we
Right.
would end up
That's what I
funding. It's not, and they would each fund 2.3 million on their ends.
Correct,
So
Right.
this is really authorization to proceed with the project.
yes,
And because we have to, because of the process, you have to define the full cost, and then the mechanics of the payment process work
Correct.
behind it.
That's correct.
That's why it's presented like this,
Yep.
okay. That-
Yep.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Yes, just since I drafted the language for it.
Yes. Okay.
I thought it would be helpful to further explain it. So the language of the warrant article is very broad, and what it does is it puts the maximum amount of the cost of the project to 7 million, but it includes, that gives us the sort of maximum, and then it includes everything that could be related and all associated
design work.
costs, the design, the engineering, the construction, and anything that would be incidental to that. But it doesn't mean that it's going to be up to that entire amount or include all of the things that are listed in there. And I also included the language that it would be Osgood Street from Bradford to Sutton Street. So that's sort of the outlying areas of the sewer project, so that we would have that flexibility in this, because we don't have any of the design or engineering plans to date.
Will any of this be more clear, or as we approach town meeting? Because my concern is if we go with an article that's saying we're looking to raise $7 million, which is a considerable sum of money, or borrow $7 million, that's going to be a heavily contested issue at town meeting. There's going to be a lot of confusion around that issue, so.
We already received some sort of a commitment with this project moving forward that, from the applicant on this? Do we?
So we don't have a written agreement with the applicant, but there has been a discussion that there would be a cost sharing of a third from the applicant, a third from the town, and that we'd be seeking funding from the state of a third of that amount.
But I think to Selectman Valencourt's point is, will we have more clarity in a few weeks?
So will we have something sort of more assurance from the developer prior to the town meeting? We could seek it. We could request something more, sort of more concrete from the developer, that there would be a contribution there. But I think the 7 million is to provide the town with the sort of the ability to fulfill the project. But I don't think there's any intention of going up for the entire 7 million.
Can I add something, Chair?
Yes, please.
If it comes to, we don't get the MassWorks grant, or 1,600 Osgood decides that they don't want to pay the third, we don't have to proceed with this. We can rescind this. We're not going to foot the bill for the full $7 million if everybody else isn't going to contribute. If we can't get the MassWorks grant and we don't get that awarded to us, and 1,600 Osgood, the applicant doesn't come up with the agreement to fund their third, we don't have to proceed. This is just put in place so that we can proceed if all the pieces come together. And if we don't vote it and do this at this special town meeting, we'd have to wait till next May. And if we can get this voted and everything falls into place, we could start working on this. And we might not want to wait till May to do that.
New development along 125, shouldn't they have some skin in the game here? I mean, they're going to benefit from this sewer expansion, aren't they?
Meaning from up across from Barker Farm there, is that what you're talking about? Well, they've already got a Mass Works grant to do that work there.
That's what I had understood.
So they've
too.
already gotten a grant to do all of that work and to do the sidewalks.
To tie into town sewer when we get it?
I think there is sewer up there already.
So-
Barker Farm, didn't they?
So this is-
The French Farm Road neighborhood?
The Princeton properties that
Princeton
we talked about?
properties.
So when Princeton property was being permitted, they had to do some of their own sewer work also.
Right.
So there was engineering costs and design costs associated with that, and also construction costs, and so there was also that kind of cost sharing that went along with that. Princeton Properties paid for a portion. The town worked with them to apply for a Mass Works grant for the improvements along Osgood Street, which includes the sidewalk and the paving. But they did also, they contributed to their own sewer work. And that's the work, a lot of work that they did was within their own property.
Okay.
Is there a reason why we wouldn't want to include language, just so that way the average person who reads this, if they read it in its entirety, it's just clear to them? Language that says that it would allow the town to spend $7 million contingent upon 2/3 of that cost being shouldered
We
by.
can do that in the explanation. When we write the explanations, we haven't done those yet.
Yeah, I think we should be very clear in the explanation.
But
There's a brief explanation here, but I think we should be very clear.
I agree.
Well, I was more asking in the article itself. I didn't know if that's a.
So we did similar language to that in the, I don't know if you recall, the last annual town meeting for the CPC for the Glenny Woodlot. There was similar language for appropriation to purchase the Glenny Woodlot with the understanding that there would be a contribution of $50,000 and a land grant. We can put something in there that sort of refers to that, and that would provide clarity. And we just want to make sure that we don't do anything that affects the town's ability to go out and borrow the money. So we'll put some clarification into the town warrant article, into the explanation of the warrant article, but we have to keep in mind that there are some statutory language that we want to make sure that is included in the article.
And under the explanation, I think you slipped a decimal place.
I could have. I absolutely
Looks
could
like
have.
borrows 700. What's the decimal place among friends?
$700?
700,000 versus 7 million.
Oh, okay. I will include that decimal point.
You fixed it, Lori?
Oh.
On the lot, right.
I guess only because of the sensitivity, because I could absolutely imagine that people would wonder why the town was going to bond out $7 million or go out and do this and not reading the next sentence. It happens, and I think we all respect that, know that that happens, and we want to be able to clearly explain it.
Yes, but I can do that.
It would certainly behoove the applicant as well to produce something in writing prior to town meeting instead of us just going by their word, because I would imagine that by that time, I would think that I would think that the people would want to see something in writing by June 18th.
Okay. And then the next two articles are our same articles that we withdrew regarding the Stevens estate. Do we have, sorry, since I'm looking at an old version, we don't have the updated map, I assume, yet?
There's no map
So,
attached.
the Stevens, the Elegant Banquets has engaged TEC to put their plan actually on the
We received that today.
map. Okay.
But we're still working on how we're going to deal with the cell tower.
Okay.
So the map itself is done. It's just we're trying to figure out if we're gonna need to modify it slightly to deal with the cell tower, or how we're gonna.
Right, so you do have updated language for the Stevens estate also, because one of the things that we realized today is that the Stevens estate is, I could get the numbers wrong. It's 135 acres of land right now. It's used, we look at it as it's used 15 acres, around approximately 15 acres is used for the function facility. We have all the open space with the wetlands and the watershed, and then we have a cell tower on town land under lease that we receive rental payments for.
What are the rental payments? Do you happen to know?
I don't know the exact number.
It's about $89,000 a year.
$89,000 a year. And so when we go to look at, we initially thought, well, we were going to take the portion that's the walking trails and open space and convey that, put it into the custody and control of the Conservation Commission, and then convey out a portion that for the function facility. And we have that one piece in there, which is the cell tower, and there's an existing special permit which has density and dimensional requirements for the lot to have had to have the wireless communications facility there, the cell tower essentially. And within the zoning bylaw, there's a requirement that there's a 1,600-foot fall line from a property line. 600, what did I say? Oh, sorry. I'm not a mathematician. Sorry, 600-foot fall line from a property line. So when we get to the part of doing our lot configuration to convey out the function facility and go to the conservation, we run into a little bit of problem. We don't want to create a zoning nonconformity. So one of the things that we were proposing that makes the most sense, that the property is already owned by the town. The portion that could be conveyed for protection for open space does not include that 600-foot fall line. So that is called out as its separate parcel that's retained by the town for general municipal purposes just for that cell tower, but doesn't go to the Conservation Commission because you can't have Article 97 land with a cell tower on it. Defeats the purpose of it. And then there's the 15 acres with the function facility that is authorized, that the warrant article seeks authorization from town meeting for the authority to sell or lease.
So an important point of all of this is that even though we would now be talking about 3 lots effectively, right? We'd be talking about the one with the conservation restriction, we'd be talking about the one that would potentially be leased or sold, and we'd be talking about this new island type situation with the cell tower. But that's still, we cannot build on it, right?
Right,
We cannot
exactly.
put anything within that fall zone.
Right.
So the presence of that very cell tower in and of itself prevents any other type of new development on that site.
Right, exactly.
Effectively accomplishing, regardless, what our goal is, which is to have those sites stay open, undeveloped,
Exactly.
and accessible.
Exactly. Right, and it's really the sort of the legal requirements of the holding land for the Conservation Commission. They hold open space and protect natural resources. If there's a cell tower on the property, it defeats the purpose of how they hold the property. So that I think that's the most efficient way to do it, because we don't have to seek a modification of our special permit for the cell tower. We're still in compliance with the zoning bylaw. It's still held by the town of North Andover. The town still retains its rental payments from that cell tower, and we are meeting sort of all of the needs from the 3 different uses of that parcel.
How many acres does that represent?
So if we say, if my number's right,
600.
you have it in front of you, it's 135 in front of you. I believe that's what it is. 135 owned by the town, fully. It's 100. I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, 153. And then it would be approximately what we looked at is 107 for the conservation restriction, 30 retained for the wireless facility, and then the 15.79 for the function facility. And if I'm off by a couple of figures, it can be amended.
So
I
it's
think
about
that's right.
30 acres, about 31 acres.
Mhm. Yes, for the cell tower, yes.
That's pretty big.
Well, you have that 600-foot
Well, I'm
fall,
just saying, in
right.
terms of, in effect, creating conservation land, we do that all around. That's in essence what it is, because it can't ever be touched.
Right.
Right, so
Right.
you really do preserve another 31 acres. You just got a cell tower.
It's like
Right.
137,
Yep.
which is what we saw originally.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So actually, this is the status quo. This is exactly how the situation has been since that cell tower was put up there.
Right.
I think that's an important point to emphasize, only because we're now taking that out of the conversation, but we are asking the town to just keep everything as is for that 600, that plot with a 600-foot radius.
Right. And one of the issues that that came up previously when before the annual town meeting was we wanted to make sure that the Conservation Commission line was exactly as depicted in what we needed for that cell tower, because we know that once that vote is taken, it all goes into protection, and then we have a difficulty changing that line. And if we create a zoning nonconformity as an unintended consequences of attempting to preserve the entire parcel, then that would be unfortunate.
Well, what happens? What is that scenario? If hypothetically the numbers weren't entirely accurate, and then we did pass a CR and it included some of the land within the 600-foot fall zone, then what does that mean? What would happen at that point?
So you get into a difficult issue as to the new lot that you're creating. You're creating that with a zoning nonconformity.
And how
would we resolve that?
Well, but my question was, who determines, obviously you have a surveyor, but it almost seems that it would be wise for us to have someone that we pay to review the surveyor's work in case there is a mistake, if it's so difficult to change it. I'm a little uncomfortable allowing one company to help us determine where these lot lines are. I would think we would have somebody else at least look it over or review it, or another company carve the lines as well, if this is so difficult to change if we make a mistake. It's not too different than some what boards do. They an applicant brings their engineer, but then the board will hire their own engineer to check the work of the applicant's engineer. But I don't know, it's...
This is our engineer. We have hired the company, and the company has worked and done this for us on many occasions. It's a reputable company, so.
So we have...
Well, again, I think I would still feel comfortable maybe having, even if it's hours, to do another review, but.
We have our own in-house GIS and town engineers that we could certainly have review it. So we have TEC, who's been creating these plans, working with the town and also working with Elegant Banquet at this point. We also have our own in-house people that can review that, another set of eyes to look at it and say yes.
Okay.
And I have faith, but this is more just a general question. What happens when that happens, if that happens? Not just at that property, but what happens when a non-conforming lot is created in that way? You discover after the fact, well, now we've just created a non-conforming lot.
They create their own hardship, and they have to go through a zoning, like a variance. Creating your own hardship does not resolve you from getting a variance. If you create your own hardship, you've created your own problem, and you have to get a variance.
Right, it's a complicated zoning problem. You're creating a zoning problem for yourself.
Or we then have to go through the ZBA again because we already have an existing.
Right, you could go for, right, I mean, there's always a process, right, with zoning. There's always a process to seek relief from the zoning bylaws, and applicants do it all the time. That's why we have planning boards and zoning boards, to seek a modification of the special permit that was previously granted and to request a variance. And
Like, can't you not create non-conforming lots?
I think that's the goal. It's not to create a non-conforming
I know,
lot.
but we're saying right now that there's the chance that if there was a line that was misplaced, it could create a non-conforming lot. And so what happens if town meeting approves this map? We've created a non-conforming lot. What then happens? Is everything rendered moot and we have to go back to town meeting?
Well, we'd have to go,
No.
we'd have to get a variance. If anything changed at the cell tower, you'd have to get a variance.
Well, we have a cell
Right, so
tower
what
out
we're,
there right now.
so what we're trying to do, what we're doing right now, in the way that this is being designed, is so that that will not happen. So it happens, people subdivide their land, they create A&Rs so that they have buildable lots. This is the process that when you're a landowner, you do, and that's the process that we'll be undertaking now to make sure that we're not going to get to the point of saying, oh, well, we made a mistake. Because we're going to have our engineer look at it, we're going to have our in-house engineer look at it, and we're going to be reviewing the zoning bylaw. And the good thing is that the building inspector and the planner are right downstairs, so they're going to look at it too, and they're going to know exactly whether or not it complies, because they would be the ones that are making the initial determination, right? So that's what we have here in town. We have TRCs. Applicants come in, they meet with everybody. How is this going to be compliant? everybody says you got to do this and that to be compliant. We will do the same process. We have been doing that same process. We've been working with the planner and the building inspector to come up with this issue, and that's, so presumably, so we're not intending to have that happen for a zoning violation to be in place. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that we're essentially guaranteeing it.
And we're doing this with the third lot because we're avoiding having the non-conforming. Because if we just do the 2 lots, the cell tower doesn't, we've just created a non-conforming lot.
Exactly.
So it was the whole purpose of
I know,
not
I'm
having to
asking
go to
though,
ZBA.
for instance, so I guess I'll just be blunt. We were on track to bring this to town meeting several weeks ago. Had we brought this to town meeting, we would have created a non-conforming lot.
So we would have to go to ZBA.
So that's what I'm asking is, so they go to ZBA, we as the town would have to go to the ZBA. So what would be the repercussions if the ZBA then in that instance said, we don't approve you? Do we have to take down the cell tower? I'm just trying to tease out what the scenario is.
Well, I think luckily it's been caught, and it's been,
No.
it's in the process
Well,
of being rectified, so that we won't create the non-conforming.
It's a fair question. Or don't we know?
Well, so, I mean, we're sort of speculating, right? We're speculating. So we're speculating that if this had gone to town meeting and we had done this conservation and we had created this lot line, at that point, it would still be owned by the town, right? So the town owns both parcels, so that issue wouldn't necessarily be treated the same way. It's more in how you're looking at it to then create your third lot to Elegant Banquet, to be able to provide a lot that is conforming.
So we would not have had a non-conformance if we had passed it.
So we-
Because
we
the
would have
cell
still owned it.
tower was
We
part of the.
We would
the
have
CR
still owned it.
part.
We would have still owned it. It would have created more of an issue with going to convey, to create that A&R to go out and to convey the parcel for Eloquent Banquets. Because there's a phrase, a zoning phrase is called infectious invalidity. So if you create a zoning violation on your lot and then you go to create a new lot, that one becomes non-conforming. So when we were going to convey it out to Eloquent Banquets with this potential zoning violation on the cell tower, then that lot would also be looked at as non-conforming. And I don't mean to give you a zoning.
And that's what I'm asking for, because we've talked about this before, the infectious invalidity. So.
Oh, were you looking for that word?
No, because it comes up in residential neighborhoods where somebody
Right.
buys what they perceive as an oversized lot and then want to subdivide it, but they'd be creating 2 non-conforming lots. But in this instance, where we're going to town meeting, I just wanted to understand what then happens. How do we respond? Does the court step in and say everything is, void? Do we then have a headache where we have to take down potentially that cell tower? Like, I just want to understand what all the options were.
We would go, right, we would essentially go to relief for the zoning boards.
Okay.
Right. If we had created that issue.
Okay, so the point is, the map will be in, the original statement was that the map is still being worked on for this
Yes.
purposes. And
Is that going to require another article, or is it going to be
Nope,
written within the one article?
No, because I did write it. It's
Within
the
the article.
updated one is
Okay.
before you right now.
Okay, so, yeah. Wait, so I'm just rereading it now, because I didn't read, I was looking at the old version. Okay. I guess the only other thing to discuss, which we didn't really discuss yet, is the order that we want to have these. This is how we initially put it, but.
Can I make a recommendation? I think we should keep the $1,600 Osgood first and
I agree.
approach town meeting with great news, that we know everybody will hopefully be on board with the $1,600 Osgood, and then move to the Stevens
Absolutely agree
Estate
with that.
articles.
And the ordering of the article is really the prerogative of the chair, so you don't have to
Right.
discuss
Oh.
that in an open session. That's your prerogative.
Oh, shame on me for not realizing that, sorry.
Actually, is it always, sometimes we'll assign a person, but then it often goes back to the chair. Everyone just does the chair. But you're both right, so that you didn't know, and Vicki is right as well, so.
mean, I would think that we would want to put the Stevens Estate first because that seems to be the one that will attract the most discussion. And I think the biggest concern with the other articles is that we are discussing narrow zoning changes, not the approval of the project. And I think that that's certainly the feedback I've given to.
I strongly disagree. I'm not so crazy about even putting this on. I don't think we're quite ready for prime time yet. And I think that there's still other plans that people are considering. I don't particularly like, after all that has come forward, that we would be given the right to this board to sell or lease, where I would say I would much prefer if we continue to want to go this route, is that we need to show the financials, we need to show the plans, we need to show everything, and it needs to go back to the people who voted to buy this estate at a time they voted themselves an override where we really couldn't even afford it. So I think the people of North Andover deserve to have the final weigh in after the deal is negotiated. So I can't support this at this time. I think that there's other parties that are expressing some interest. The Trust for Reservation is kind of talking about it. There's other things that I think the townspeople might be interested in.
You cut me off. I wasn't asking for whether or not we were going to move favorable or unfavorable action, which is what you're responding to. I'm asking if the thing that is already on our agenda should be at the front or the back.
Okay, so then, thank you for making me get to my point. I think there'll be a lot of discussion and could be heated discussion on this. And I don't think we want to lead into a very important town meeting that we want people there to be happy and supportive of the potential project that is at Aussie Properties and not leading with what could be a very contentious meeting. Thank you for making me circle back around as to why I was bringing that up. I'm concerned about it. And this Aussie property is, I think, a project we all agree on so far, and looking forward to hearing as it progresses. And I would hate to see something trip it up.
So I've only been to 20-something town meetings, which is far less than many people in this room. I can't recall at any point in our town's history where voters punished an unrelated article because they were that emotional about a prior article's vote, which is what you're suggesting.
Not exactly the way you framed it. I think there is a level of concern and distrust that it's being rushed a little bit, that they haven't had proper chance to really vet it. It's quick. We're putting it back on in 3 weeks. So I don't think that they would necessarily punish but there might be, people might be wanting more information. I think we hear this, I hear it. We hear other people who've come to our board meeting who've talked about, gee, we wish we were informed. We wish we had more information.
So this isn't a discussion.
Not that many people come to the meetings. I mean, we had 4 public sessions last week. I went to 3 of them, I think. There were really not that many people. I was surprised with how much we've heard, well, this is rushed and we want access to information and we want, to have public comment and so forth and so on. There's a webpage now dedicated on our town website with information about the proposal. We had 4, a meeting every single day, and one in the evening and one in the afternoon, that were really very sparsely attended. But still, out of an abundance of ability to make sure everyone has their opportunity, we're going to have it on the meeting next week, June 3rd, and have like a public hearing style discussion.
Heck, they went to the Conservation Commission, and Conservation Commission members sat at this table.
So.
I did, and their response was, no comment, let's wait till after town meeting. So I guess, but we did kind of get, just to bring it back to the point. This is on the town meeting warrant. I just think precisely, I actually feel like we're proving the point that we should strive to have this important discussion earlier in the evening as opposed to later in the evening, because I think that's typically when you have more people there.
Right, people are fresh and they're focused.
I take exactly what's said. It's happening that night. We're not getting any more information from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. So why wouldn't we put this discussion at the beginning of town meeting and have what we are acknowledging is the discussion that people are going to be discussing. I know that that sounds silly to say, but we've just acknowledged, actually, even the people who don't want to move it have said, the other articles are feel good, which means we think that they're pretty basic. Why wouldn't we have the discussion first and then just wrap up the rest of the business for the end of the meeting?
I think it's a bad choice.
Selectman Valencourt, could I have your opinion on this?
Yeah, no, I'm just contemplating it. In the past, I've reordered articles when I was chair to kind of keep the important ones to the end so folks would stay, so they'd have the full engagement in town meeting. I don't know, in this case, they're all important, right? They're all something that I think people are going to be engaged with and want to discuss, both hopefully in a feel-good manner, and then I think in a more, detailed or more heated discussion, as I think the word was used for the others, for the other two. So I think you can go either way. I mean, if we put them up front, yeah, if we put articles, currently ones 5 and 6 that are up front, I think, yeah, we're gonna get a good, robust conversation either way. So, sure, maybe if we dispose of the feel-good ones up front and we get those, hopefully passed and on their way, then we save the others for a more robust discussion afterwards. So that's the way I think. I like the way they're ordered right now, basically.
That's why, and I think, well, maybe the feel-good articles will flow into the next articles, so.
My concern would be, I guess, if people are going to leave after the Osgood articles.
I mean, we say we want there to be a big discussion. We all watch town meeting. It's not like town meeting is crowded at the end and sparsely attended at the beginning.
Right.
It's crowded at the beginning. And what I keep hearing from everyone, opposed or in favor.
There's 6 articles. If someone's gonna make a commitment to be there, I would hope they would be willing to stay for 6 articles.
We had one article at our last special town meeting, and that took several hours of discussion.
I understand.
Isn't there also, my mother always told me, do the hard thing first? And it's the engaging thing. And I think the opportunity to really have people engage, have the full discussion, I think is crucial. I think that people being there, being fresh, and the two issues are totally separate. If we really feel that the Osgood articles are really that straightforward, then let's leave them there as straightforward, and let's do our work up front while we're all there, fresh, and get it done. So,
Madam Chair, the warrant has to go to print next week. You have one more meeting. Again, as Dick stated, it is ultimately the chair's responsibility of placing the order. So I wouldn't suggest that you don't vote the order of it tonight, because it is your
I
recommendation.
just wanted to get the input of
Yeah,
people.
okay.
But you still have time.
But I have time
Then
to
you still have
decide.
time
Okay.
to decide, yes.
All right, I think I understand where everyone lies on it. Wonderful.
thanks for volunteering for chair.
That $500, yeah.
We should add another article for. Okay,
Move to accept.
so any further discussion on these before we move to accept the warrant?
Chair, I move to accept the warrant for the 2019 special town meeting.
Second.
Any further discussion? Sorry,
I will vote to accept, even though I already spoke with my piece about the last one, but for the sake of moving it all forward, I would.
all right, all in favor then?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Madam Chair, I move to close the warrant for the 2019 special town meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, next item, vote to terminate the February 14th tax increment financing agreement with 1600 Osgood. I think we have Suzanne to say a few words on that, okay?
So What's before you tonight is on the request of 1600 Osgood Street, and it's a request to terminate the tax increment financing agreement that was entered into in 2005. Over the years, the Osgood has received most of the benefit. The remaining years, there's only been a 1% tax break for Osgood, and in the process of having the new development with Hillwood and Amazon, they're reconfiguring the lots. So the lots on which the TIF was benefiting, they were benefiting from, will no longer exist. So therefore, we're seeking to rescind that and decertify the TIF agreement, and that's what the agreement is before you tonight.
Okay, any questions on that for Suzanne?
Pretty sure. Move that the Board of Selectmen terminate the tax increment financing agreement with 1600 Osgood LLC and Osgood Landing LLC effective June 30th, 2019.
Second.
So just a question, so that, what that means is that we would be getting more tax monies from the property, right?
Right, so a tax increment financing agreement is a tax break.
Right.
So they're getting a discount on the taxes owed to the town. By rescinding this, there's no longer a discount on the taxes owed to the town. And there's going to be, right.
Yeah, perfect.
I think motion made and seconded. Any further questions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Suzanne. Next item is a waiver of the permit fees for energy conservation work at town buildings. I think we typically do this so we don't pay ourselves.
Yep. Madam Chair, I will move, hold on, I'm sorry, I gotta find it. Oh, I missed it. Where is it? Move that the Board of Selectmen waive the permit fees for the energy conservation work at the police station, fire station, senior center, and middle school.
Second.
Any
Thanks,
further
Joyce.
discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, so the next item is regarding Stevens Estate bookings and liquor license renewal. So we had, in a previous meeting, placed a moratorium on future bookings after December 31st of this year. And we said we would revisit that after receiving the RFP responses. Given that we now have a proposal and we know what Elegant Banquet's timeline would be were we to move forward with them, I think that we could lift that moratorium and accept bookings through September 1st of 2020, which we could then extend further if obviously we don't go with obviously we would just lift it all together if we were not to go with them. But at this point, if we were to accept their proposal and move forward, they would start construction in September of 2020. So, but obviously nothing before then. So firstly, I would suggest that we lift the moratorium and take bookings through September 1st of 2020. I would also just suggest, and this is further to the discussion we had in our last meeting, I would suggest that we not renew the liquor license for the Stevens Estate and instead operate going forward the way other event rental facilities operate in town and in Massachusetts and other towns, where a applicant would go to a licensed entity, and through them, they would hire someone to do their liquor needs. And then that entity would come to us and get a one-day liquor license, similar to when we have someone from Smollett Farms, an event at Smollett Farms or other, they come, or the trustees of reservations is a great example, when they have liquor at the beer garden or whatever, whoever's operating that comes before us and gets a one-day liquor license for that use. So my suggestion is that we would, and we also did some research of other towns that have castles or estates that are rented out for events. There are a few, only a handful, honestly. And we took a look at those, none of them have liquor licenses. They all either have, go with this one-day liquor license approach, or they just don't have alcohol out at their facility. And the reason I'm making this suggestion is, I guess, twofold. One is to limit the liability to the town from us being the servers of alcohol and potential accidents or things that could happen from that. And two, for us to not be in the cash business anymore, since this is the only thing that generates cash. And it's the only thing in our whole town operation that generates cash, and is actually noted in our auditor report that it's not good that we are in a cash business. So I guess for those reasons, I mean, precedent of what other towns do, limiting liability and not being in a cash business, that's something that our auditors don't like. My suggestion would be that we change the way we operate.
So I have a
Madam
question,
Chair.
two
Yes.
questions. What is the fee for the one-day liquor license? And I should know this, but I think it's, is it at $1,500 for one day? How much?
It's like $100.
I think it's $100.
Okay, so it's fairly inexpensive.
Yeah.
So then would we, so today, the caterers that work there, they provide some of their money back to the Stevens Estate. Would we expect the liquor providers like Butlets and Bar, or Bar, I don't know if anybody else.
Yeah, the goal would be, because I wanted to state as well, if we decide not to renew the liquor license, which expires on December 31st, any bookings we took from January 1st on would be on this new plan. So we have between now and December 31st to work out some sort of a pricing schedule and what we would get for a percentage back from anybody that would be bringing in a bartending service.
So we don't have to actually do that tonight. We don't have to actually vote on the licensing portion of it tonight.
Well,
Actually, I don't even.
We don't have to,
do.
we don't have to vote on what the price structure would be of what we would get back from these one-day, liquor licenses. What we do need to vote on, though, if we're gonna lift the moratorium, we could get a request tomorrow for a booking in February.
Right.
And if they want alcohol, we need to be able to tell them, great, you need to go get your caterer and your liquor provider.
Right.
Can I
So
just-
we need to know
So
when we
you're-
start taking bookings again,
You're
whether or not.
asking for 2020.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, I'm asking, this would
I wanna
start
make sure this
January
isn't
1st.
impacting any
So
existing.
fiscal year
No, this would be all new bookings.
No, calendar year.
You're still talking calendar year.
Sorry, calendar year 2020, any new bookings as of January 1st, 2020 would follow this new model.
Right.
So whatever's currently in place, that continues.
So, following up on what Selectman Valencourt said, do you think that we will take a financial hit on this? I agree with what you said, but I'm just trying to weigh the money, because liquor
yeah.
tends to bring in
Right.
most of the money.
Right. The alcohol is one of the biggest volume of money. But again, it's cash. And it's cash that we shouldn't be handling, never mind the fact we really shouldn't be serving alcohol. Based on the surveys and the information we've found from surrounding communities that have this type of function hall, they do not serve alcohol from the town. They have some individual company comes in, gets their own liquor license and processes it.
Lynn, are we
So do you-
self-insured with liability?
No.
Well, can I just follow up with some of my questions? So so you feel as though the money that we would get from the caterer and the liquor provider would not compensate with what we would have made if we don't?
Well, you gotta understand, the expense side is gonna go down too, because now we no longer have to pay for the
Okay,
alcohol
that's
and
fine.
and some additional
Yeah.
things. Are we gonna take a loss? Most likely. We're not gonna make the profit, or it's not gonna break even, I would have to say, still.
Okay.
But it takes away a lot of liability.
I do get the
Right.
liability. I
So,
truly
I
get
mean,
that.
we'd have, one way outweighs the other, in essence. You have pros and cons of both. But to me, this route is a much better route to go, because it definitely.
And I don't disagree, but I just don't want all of a sudden, now that we're losing so much money, that we're talking again about
Well, you gotta
closing the
understand, it's
facility.
only a short period of time, so if.
You're feeling okay with
If Elegant Banquets comes to fruition,
Mm-hmm.
this is only till September 1st.
Can I ask sorry,
Okay, I'm done now.
No, I just had one.
a broader question about, so the bartenders
Mm-hmm.
are town employees,
Yes, they are.
and they're able to accept tips?
Yep, they're tip certified, yep.
No,
No,
except
it's-
tips.
Hey,
Cash tips.
So
As
they,
town employees.
for their service as town employees, they're
Yeah.
able to accept? I don't,
Yeah,
I've never reflected on that, but
I
like,
never
what's
have
to
either.
stop somebody
I've
from
never
going
looked
up
at it
there
that,
and?
in that essence either, yeah. I get you.
People want us to provide more
Right.
oversight. I mean, this is an
Yep.
example where I've never really reflected
I
on
never
that.
even thought about that, to be honest with you, because they are getting,
Because every other town employee
Tips.
for the service that they provide are prohibited
yep,
from accept, like,
right. You, anything
it's a
over
big problem.
$25, you can't,
Yeah.
$50.
It's 50.
50,
Oh.
but you can make, a good bartender can, on a good event, can make more than that on
Oh, I
an
am.
evening.
This is another example.
Of why we shouldn't be doing this.
Yep.
Thank you.
And
Add one more to the list.
but actually, in theory, those people in themselves, like,
Yeah,
just
they-
because we're saying it's okay,
Yeah.
they actually, there could be a third party. I mean, the state, for instance,
Yep.
could crack down and they could get in trouble as well, right?
Potentially, yeah. Ethics law.
I mean, if we,
Yep.
for instance, if we said to our clerk's office, you can accept tips, that doesn't mean they can accept
Let's
tips.
put a tip jar out.
But no, like, you can accept tips for dog licenses. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean they can accept tips.
Right, you
There,
can't.
these are state
Right,
laws,
it's like a
so.
gift, right. You're right. Good thought. Didn't think of that.
the other issue here is, actually, if you look at the total revenue, the estimated bar for next year, it looks like 31,000.
Right.
So-
Because, well, that's because of the type of events. We don't have many events.
Right, but if you go back previous years,
Mhm.
it's less, it's barely 10%, and that's revenue.
Right.
So when you balance it off against employees,
Right.
you're really talking about small incremental. The other thing that's sort of interesting is, just as an aside, the number of large weddings has been dropping the past couple of years.
Yeah.
We went from 44 in 17 to 33 in 18. So, kind of having that person on staff, now it's a greater cost per every event. So, because you don't have as many events to stretch it out over. So I think that kind of adds to
Yeah,
the financial
it's-
piece.
yeah.
Yep.
Just to the point of also the financials, as I know there was a comment during public comment about it. Lynn and I did meet with the chair of the Stevens Estate Advisory Committee. We went over the financials again. We are in alignment on the financials. We're going to post on the website that I mentioned that has the estate
We did.
information. Okay, it's already there. The financials are posted, so anyone can go look. And in fact, I thought I had a printout of this nice little chart I made.
Yep.
Which, well, I was gonna give you guys a hard copy, but anyway, you can go look at it on the website too.
It's
But
on the website.
there's a nice bar chart, line chart, whatever, that gives you a picture of the data and shows the financial picture of the estate. That's not the liquor license piece, that's just to answer the question about complete transparency on the financials, which are there, so people can look at.
Yep.
But that's only operating, though.
That's, what do you mean?
Operating budget, so what about capital investment?
No, the
there's a
capital's
tab,
there,
there's a
there's
capital.
tabs
So
for everything.
all of that's,
Data's
that's
there.
what I'm saying. So it's
The
not
data is
just
there.
the cost of operating, but it's
Yeah.
all the other, okay,
Yep.
good.
I'm pretty sure they can, on that sheet, we don't have the specifics of booking fee versus the alcohol license. We didn't get to that detail, but,
No.
to answer the question, yes, there's revenue is made through, through alcohol sales, but the question is that revenue that we want? There's a big risk to the town, I think, and personally, my job as a selectman, I think, is to be a financial steward of the town and limit risk to the town, not to make profits from alcohol sales. I find that problematic, so.
I just want to know what we could be facing.
Understood, yeah. So I guess I would look for a motion to lift the moratorium to receive bookings from January 1st to September 1st of 2020, and to not renew the liquor license if you guys agree with the recommendation.
Madam Chair, I move that the Board of Selectmen extend the date for accepting bookings at the Stevens Estate from the current December 31st, 2019 date to September 1st, 2020. Additionally, I include in this motion a decision to not schedule events in 2020 with the assumption that the site has a liquor license.
That's confusing.
We're not renewed.
Because we can't, to say that we're not,
So-
but in theory,
We're not going to renew it.
we aren't renewing it, but we could always, isn't it better to just say don't don't book assuming that we have a liquor license.
Well, no, but wait a minute, we're not saying that because we're saying that the caterer or a bar service company. I don't want to put out a message that you only can have weddings where there's no liquor.
Yeah, no, they're definitely.
Because that's not true.
Well, hopefully it's accurately reported either way. I just meant because the licensing renewal comes up in December anyways, and it would be like in the middle of this year, deciding on any other license holder to say,
Okay.
we're not renewing your license, but that comes up later in the year. I guess it just seems, I don't
We'll
mind
figure it
adjusting it, but I just thought it was actually cleaner because we will review all the licenses in December.
We have
but-
a father of the
saying
bride
accept
of the
bookings,
wedding at probably.
But do not
No, that's next year.
accept,
But with the understanding that they must provide their own liquor
Right.
after December 31st, 2019. They must make their own arrangements for liquor.
Own arrangements. Yeah, they cannot provide their own liquor.
So I will
Own arrangement.
clarify. I move that the Board of Selectmen extend the date for accepting bookings at the Stevens Estate from December 31st, 2019 to September 1st, 2020, with the understanding that any bookings after December 31st, 2019 must make their own arrangements for alcohol.
okay. Do we have a second?
Still mulling that one over. I mean, that could mean a lot of things, like you bring your own alcohol with you, or it's gotta be a tip certified provider, like butlers and bars or something.
Yeah, true, definitely, people could think that they could bring their own alcohol.
I know, so
Just have their bartender.
no, the response is,
Apply for a one-day liquor license.
yeah, they need to provide a professional liquor service company.
They must apply for a
So
one-day liquor license.
amend and say that I move that the Board of Selectmen extend the date for accepting bookings at the Stevens Estate from December 31st, 2019 to September 1st, 2020, provided that after December 21st, 2019, all bookings must apply for a one-day liquor license.
Okay, that one I like.
I like that too.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No, I'm on. Just one more thing. The Stevens Estate is open for bookings and weddings till September 1st, 2020. So go check it out. It looks beautiful right now. It's stunning, so.
Great, so motion passes unanimously. Okay. Ooh, moving to licensing.
Yes.
Anyone?
Madam Chair, motion to move into licensing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're in licensing. First is, we have a application from Papala LLC, DBA Richdale Dairy. We have someone to speak to that. Please, your name
Yes,
and
Madam
address,
Jignesh
please.
Patel and my sister-in-law Sweta Patel. So we are going to buy the Richdale convenience store located on the 75 Chickering Road. So
And we've got in our, and so this is really just the transfer of the licensing, right, to
Yeah.
this new entity. In our packet, we've got all the sign-offs in here by the police, fire, so forth. No issues from the town any other way? Any other questions?
Folks run other, do you have other convenience stores as well? Do you have other?
yeah, sure.
I have one liquor store in
North Andover.
North Andover, but I'm just partner, not manager.
Okay, which one is that now?
Beer
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 wine.
at North Andover.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I'll motion that move that the Board of Selectmen, acting as license commissioners, approve the request of Papala LLC, DBA Richdale Dairy Store, for a transfer and pledge of their wine and malt package store liquor license.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All success for you. Okay, next we have a one-day liquor license request from Deborah Ingalls of Butlers and Bars, sort of as we were talking earlier. I don't think there's anybody here to talk about it. This is an event at Smollock Farm on June 2nd. They are requesting a waiver of a police detail. on this again. The event is, starts at 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's a private function. Again, we've got all the sign-offs in here. Any discussion, and I guess also want to address that waiver issue again?
Chair, I move that the Board of Selectmen acting as licensing commissioners approve the request of Butlers and Bars for a one-day wine and malt license for a bridal shower at Smolak Farms on June 2nd, 2019 from 11, I'm assuming that should be 11 a.m.
Right.
to 3 p.m.
Right.
And given it's a bridal shower in the morning, I'm hoping that we can waive the the requirement for police detail.
I would say that's a fairly reasonable expectation, sir. All right, any other discussion on that? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right.
Fun stuff now.
And now we've got to the one-day liquor license requests from Ipswich Ale Brewery. And this is for an event to be held at the Stevens Coolidge on the, let's see, on the 16th. Oops, I jumped ahead, my apology. I did, I'm sorry. Notch. My paper gets the best of me. Okay. So this is, Notch Brewing for 8 one-day wine and malt licenses for events at the Stevens Coolidge. For a mobile beer garden on the 30th from 4 to 9 p.m. for a pop-up beer garden from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. on the 31st. Pop-up beer garden again noon to 7 p.m. on June 1. A pop-up beer garden from noon to 6 p.m. on the 2nd. A pop-up beer garden from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. on September 12th. Pop-up beer garden from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. on the 13th. Pop-up beer garden / Oktoberfest from noon to 7 p.m. on September 14th. And a pop-up beer garden from noon to 6 p.m. on the 15th.
Sorry, I might be missing something, but what's the difference between a mobile beer garden and a pop-up beer garden? One's a tent.
I think one's the truck, so they actually pull in a truck which has the taps in it.
Oh.
Please, come up and.
She was laughing at our descriptions.
I had the same question,
I was thinking it as well. Funny names.
Yeah, so the mobile beer garden is, you might be familiar with Ipswich Brewery, also has a mobile tap mobile, so it is, the taps are built into the side of the vehicle so that it can drive with all the picnic tables in the back to different locations across the state at the trustees' properties. So that's the mobile component.
So isn't that needed at all of them?
Sorry?
Isn't that needed at all of them to serve the beer then? Like,
Yes.
Why is it only, you know what I mean?
So what's a pop-up beer garden then? What's the difference?
It's not permanent. It's like it's traveling, so it just pops up in one location for a few days, then goes to Rocky Woods on the south
Okay, so mobile
part
and
of the.
pop-up basically the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. It's just worded differently.
Yeah.
Oh, he did, oh, okay.
It says like, there's one mobile and then all the others are pop-ups, so we're just kind of wondering.
Yeah.
Oh,
So it
sorry.
sounds like everything-
No, it's the same 8
Okay.
days, except for the Oktoberfest, which has some extra components.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the Board of Selectmen acting as licensing commissioners approve the request of Notch Beer for 8 one-day wine and malt licenses for beer garden events at Stevens Coolidge Place as presented.
Second. Any other discussion? Other than they've got a great track record and
Yeah, great.
really happy to
They
have you
said they
come
have
back.
other towns approaching them to try to get them to come.
Well,
But we got them locked up.
Right, yeah, 8 in a row, get them all in a row.
yeah, and you came in early, and thank you for starting to set the precedent, and the parking also seems to be worked out very well, and the neighbors are happy, so.
Yes, yeah, had a
Keep it
few
going.
meetings recently, so I think all good things happening.
Good, good. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good to roll. We'll see
Okay.
you.
There weren't a
There's a
couple
couple
more
more.
for me?
Yeah.
Oh.
I had everybody just do it all together, so I could answer all the questions.
So item D.
D, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a request for 4 one-day wine and malt licenses at the Stevens of Coolidge for the summer picnic series from 5 PM to 8 PM on the 21st. D.
You skipped 2 of them before that.
Wow.
D and E.
So the Father's Day, which actually sounds pretty cool.
Oh, yeah,
I went
very
to it last
popular.
year, it was a blast.
Oh,
That's
D,
right, yeah.
D, E, and F, right. So this is for Ipswich for the one-day beer and wine at the Stevens Coolidge from 4 PM to 7 PM on the 16th, Father's Day?
Father's Day, yeah.
Right.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the request for June 16th, 2019, from 4 PM to 7 PM for their Father's Day Bluegrass Bash. And that is for a one-day wine and malt license.
A second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And then the last one, thank you for your patience, request of the Party Connection for one-day license at the Stevens Coolidge from 5 PM to 7 PM on the 8th.
Which one is this now?
So that's E.
The Rose Garden
Okay,
Soiree.
Yeah, E.
The
What's
Rose
that?
Garden
The Rose-
Soiree.
Ah.
Right, I saw that.
And tell us what the soiree is.
It's our one chance to be a little fancy.
Uh-huh.
So one,
Fancy what?
So what does that mean?
Do we get to wear
people
fancy
get dressed
clothes?
up, kids aren't allowed, live music, it's cocktails, it's just a little adults-only evening out.
Entertainment license, do you have that?
I do,
Linda?
yes.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
That's the other thing with that. Okay.
Great, I'll move approval.
Second.
All-
We'll vote for
all in
fancy,
favor?
won't we?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I do have one question while up here. So I talked to Officer Daniel Lannon about the police waivers. So I know that's something that anytime there's a one-day license, there should be a police waiver. He said the board can waive it for the liquor license, and then I just have to make a judgment call when it's something that's like well-attended to have a police detail tell people across the street. So I didn't know if that was something separate that I would have to submit for, or how that would work, I guess.
So you did this last year, the Bluegrass one?
Yes.
So I didn't know there were many that you asked for. Did you need one last year?
We didn't have one last year, but I think I would have one this year because it's only a 3-hour event and we see like 1,200 people. So I'd like a police detail just to help people cross the street. But things like Notch, where maybe it's 800 people, but over 8 hours, then they're fine to cross the street themselves.
In there, yeah. I guess with a lot of people, and especially if anybody's bringing kids along, I
Right.
just, crossing that road,
Yeah.
there's just a lot going on. So
Yeah.
I can appreciate there hasn't been a problem, but I would just say, kind of sitting as chair, I'd rather be, as I say, wicked safe than sorry.
So do you want me to make that call, like the Rose Garden Soiree is adults and a couple hundred people, so no police detail, but Father's Day is 1,000 people and kids are involved, so yes, police detail.
Definitely for the 1,000.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, technically, you have to have them because of how we voted. So I guess because you actually included the request, we could motion for certain events if you feel like it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
At
In
this point,
council with-
if you have different events that you'd like us to waive the detail for now,
I do.
we could discuss
Okay.
that. Instead of us making the judgment because we're not familiar with what you want. I mean,
Sure.
for instance, like the Bluegrass one, you said that you would.
Yeah, I would have a police detail for that.
But
But the pop-up.
the question was the
gardens-
process, so you should request us to waive the police detail.
She did.
So
When you want to.
I did,
okay.
but it didn't
I
come up
missed
when you
that.
guys were
Okay,
talking,
sorry.
so I thought I'd bring it up since I'm
So
here.
we need to
missed
go
that.
back and motion.
We have to go back and
We
motion.
need to waive, so I'll start. So I'll make a motion that we waive the police detail for the 8 pop-up beer gardens that were previously approved for a one-day malt and wine license from Notch Brewery.
I will second that for discussion. I haven't
I don't think we should waive that. I think there's a lot of people and a lot of kids and,
I think
I
it's
don't know. It's
important
pretty
to
crowded.
note that the event is anywhere from 5 to 8 hours long, so they're not all at once.
when I went, it
I
was
think
pretty
the-
crowded.
Yeah, I think the concern of the board is crossing the street, and, having a police officer there has always been a, at least a safe crossing for everybody.
Sure.
I mean, we can appreciate that that's an expense, but there's not an alternative that's allowable to provide that crossing safety there.
Right.
Unless if Officer Lannon can come up with an alternative plan, right? We are we're saying it's not waived, but if Officer Lannon believes that there's another way to affect this, what would the sense of the board?
Because I do know, and not that like revenue should negate safety, but because it is a free event, we wouldn't probably be able to continue with this because the police detail would be a costly budget item that we don't have. So I'd be happy to talk to him about alternatives if that's something
Well,
you'll say is okay.
What are the hours for that again?
The weekday ones are 4 to 9, and the weekend ones are 12 to 7 and 12 to 6.
So predominantly, it's still light out in the summer.
So I would also say that I appreciate that you came so much in advance for some of these events.
Yeah.
And that 4 of these events are coming up between now and our next meeting anyways. But 4 of the events are coming up 3 months from now.
Right.
And so I think that you would have a good idea certainly about those 4 and be able to come back to us even at our June 3rd meeting to say this is the type of response we got. We really didn't need a police detail.
But I could say that since we already did it last year.
And you found that there wasn't at all, you don't anticipate that, because I feel like a lot of people are talking about the events you're having now, and I felt like last year was the first time you were really doing events and they seemed to really gain momentum.
Yeah.
We were there in the middle of a workday in the middle of a workday, it was a 9 a.m. meeting to talk about the future of the estate.
Yeah.
And it literally was a standing room only meeting.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So it was great, it means
Yeah.
there's that interest, but
So were you
Were they
there
giving away
at the
free
informational session last week?
Yes.
Is that where oh, okay.
I was going to mention that later, but yeah.
Okay.
so I mean it was great, but there were
Yeah.
40 plus
Yeah.
people there
Standing room
Yeah.
only.
because
Yeah. That Wednesdays are when all of our volunteers come, so there's a lot of people.
So I don't want to do anything that puts a financial burden, and I also want to be responsible as a town.
Well, I guess my question would be, would Knott's Brewing, since they are selling their product, would they be willing to assist, or at least maybe even pay for that police detail?
I know they won't cover it. I can approach them about sharing it, though.
I do like the idea of, let's stick with this for the first 4, and that also gives time to have some discussions. And I say, again, a lot of this, we don't have a clear statement from Officer Lannon in terms of waive it, okay? He's very clear where he recommends waiving. He's not making that statement here. So I think that leaves the door open to have that discussion. But I think it's,
So are you saying waive it for the first 4? So
no, keep it
or
for the
keep
first,
it
keep it for the first 4.
Okay.
Right? And then that gives us time to come back for the other 4. If there's a change, plus you've got track record, plus you've had the opportunity to talk to Notch Brewing and Officer Lana. What's the sense of the?
I guess I was going to suggest we could go the opposite and waive it for the first 4 since it's short time frame, and in those first 4 we can get a sense of how many people there are per hour and whatever, and
go either way.
It's a
I don't
4-hour
know.
minimum.
I mean, would it be,
And even if it goes over 5 minutes, they get another 4 hours.
4-hour
increments.
Yeah. So I'm wondering
Yeah.
if you want to put it to what we think would be peak times. If we want to be careful with it, that we don't want to kill the event, but.
Yeah.
I mean, would it be unreasonable to have someone out there that, not to direct traffic or to stop traffic, because they can't do that because they're not police officers, but to just instruct people when it's safe to cross the street? I
Well,
guess
like
that would be a
now-
liability, though, yeah.
Right now, the event would be happening. this coming weekend, right? I mean, we're talking about
It's
May
Thursday.
30th, May 31st.
Pretty
So
Yeah.
it's 8:30 right now.
It'll be over, basically, yeah.
Well, I mean, it goes till 9, so the more the point is like,
Yeah, that's, I think, the scary.
it stays later, but not, it stays light later, but not so late.
Sure.
I'm trying to think of the,
But this is when it's easier to cross that street when no one's on it.
um, what was the attendance last year?
We had 400 people to 500,
Over
on
the
the
course of the
weekend.
day?
Yeah,
And did you have a police detail last year?
no.
Was that a no?
No.
Yeah. that
So
was-
we just,
'Cause I've
we
seen
just
people-
recovered the fact
But
that we
at the
needed a
events where
police
they
detail.
have people paying for it, so like at the Blues and Brews, there was a police detail there.
Yeah, or
I was
winter
gonna say.
lights, we had, even if there's no alcohol, it's just a lot of people, so we have police details.
And that was a voluntary one on your part, because they did not require police details last year for any events.
No,
We didn't know what would happen with winter lights, so we just figured.
I mean, I guess I would be inclined to waive it for the first 4 and have you come back and tell us the attendance numbers, and if they're really high, maybe we get it, I mean,
Okay, so.
I don't know. I mean,
can amend my
I can be
motion.
swayed, I mean.
So my motion right now on the table was to waive it for all 8.
Right.
But I can amend that motion to waive it for the first 4. That would be May 30th, May 31st, June 1st, and June 2nd. And then maybe ask Kate to come back and talk to us at our June 3rd meeting, which is in a week, to give us some indication of how the events went and what your thoughts were on, whether or not,
Would
what
you,
were the attendance numbers, I should say.
June 3rd, or would you prefer I come closer to the,
Well,
like in the
that's next week,
end of the
right?
summer? It just sounded like June 3rd, you have more important things to talk about.
This is important, though.
Okay.
Well, it'll be right after the event, so it'll be fresh, how many
Yeah.
people attended and whatnot. I mean, is there any other kind of, I don't know,
Oh, I see what you're
additional
saying, though,
light
because,
or-
I see what you're saying, because the next event isn't until June 21st, right? Or in this case, the beer garden isn't until September 12th.
Right.
So you're saying you don't have to come back right on June 3rd, you can come back
Yeah.
later, and
If
after
you-
you've had a chance to
Yeah, okay.
accumulate all the information. in the
Well, maybe
day
talk
that
to
day.
Officer, Lieutenant
Yeah.
Lannon too.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've amended my motion to only waive the police detail for the first 4.
First 4. Do I have a second for that?
I'll second that.
Is there a
Sorry,
kind
could you say that again?
I amended my motion to only waive the police detail for the first 4 events, May 30th, May 31st, June 1st, and June 2nd. And then have Kate come back and talk to us about the numbers that she had in attendance at that point, so we can make a determination for the final 4.
There are 2 that are 4 to 9, and that's the dark. That's got me a little worried. So I'm wondering if we could just have it for the last.
The last 4 hour.
Yeah, so that would be a 5 to 9? Right.
Or even probably, yeah, well, you might as well get the 4 hours because it's
Right.
4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think
Or you
that we'll
stop
all
the-
feel
or you stop
a
the
little bit
8
better with
o'clock.
Yeah,
that.
That's a
okay,
fair
that's fair compromise.
Is that- okay
That will be my
compromise?
friendly amendment, Dick,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you're willing to accept it.
Well, or she stops the event at 8 o'clock, and it's still light at 8 o'clock.
Oh.
No,
Well, I
this-
was
we're
just
talking
talking
this
for
is
the
May.
the first
This is
few
May.
coming, but
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it'd be hard to change the time now,
Yeah.
just because
Okay.
it's been
It's
so
already advertised,
shared.
yeah.
Advertised, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so Thursday and Friday, police detail, the last 4 hours?
yeah, I
Yeah.
just think that
Okay.
we'll all feel a little bit better about that.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
second
so-
that amendment, I don't know.
Like
5 to,
5:30 to 9:30?
Yeah.
Because you'll get charged if you go over 4 hours.
even by
And
like
if it ends at
15 minutes,
9,
it's,
You figure people
you
are
get the
actually
full
leaving
4.
until 9:30.
Yeah, so go 6 to
Move
10.
it.
Yes,
Move
go
it
6 to
further.
10.
6 to 10 to be sure.
Right.
Yeah.
for just those evening ones.
Okay, so now we have to peel back the onion here on all these amendments and
Right.
everything.
Do
So
it
my
again.
original motion was to waive it for the 8. Then I amended that to only waive it for the 4. Now I'll make a third amendment to
Pick the one you like.
not waive it for the first 2, but require it for the last portion. So to ensure that there's a police detail to ensure safe crossing at the end of the events on May 30th and May 31st, but to waive it for June 1st and June 2nd. Are you
I
getting
will
all that down?
second that.
I don't even want to look at the notes on your page.
Any more
Wrote down the
discussion?
important one.
Are we good?
It's all
All right.
in motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, negotiate it out.
Okay.
All right,
And then Father's Day, I'll have a detailed,
Right.
And the soiree.
and
and the soiree, I wasn't planning on having a detail, but.
What are the
Yeah, I
hours?
mean,
for
that's
the
5 to
lunch?
7
That's 5 to
in the middle of the
7.
summer.
It's
That's
like
okay.
I think that's
150.
okay. No
And it's only
kids.
adults, no
Yeah,
kids.
no
it's just
kids.
ladies with high heels perhaps,
Yeah.
but maybe not, because they're walking
'Cause it's
on
grass.
grass.
Yeah.
All
right.
right, all right.
I would
So-
motion that we waive the police detail for the June 8th event at the Stevens Estate,
I'll second.
Stevens Coolidge House, excuse me.
Yeah. Any more discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you.
LJT, thank you.
I think we,
Patience.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I think we still have F and G to do.
F and G.
There's still one more.
Oh, do I have more?
Well, I don't think we did F either.
We didn't do
F
F1.
and
Wait, no, just got
Oh,
the
yeah,
first.
sorry, they're both, okay.
The first heavy lifting done. Now that these are, all right, so this is for 4 one-day wine and malt licenses for events at the Stevens Coolidge, the Summer Picnic Series,
Oh, yeah.
5 to 8 p.m. on June 21st. Summer Picnic Series, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. on the 18th. Summer Picnic Series from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. on the 15th of August. And Summer Picnic Series, 5 to 8 p.m. on September 19th. So,
Okay, so I'm going to throw this one out there. Mr. Chair, I'll move approval for those events, those dates for one-day malt and wine license, and I'm going to suggest that we waive, given the times, the police detail for those events.
I'll second that.
any other discussion now that we've been through sort of timing and so forth? Census, this is daylight hours, it's okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay.
Thank you.
Passed unanimously, all right. Now, last one, request of Channel Marker Brewing for a one-day wine and malt liquor license for an event at the Stevens Coolidge from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. on the 29th. And again, got everything in our packet. Man, we've got a lot going on there.
Yeah, that's going on there.
I thought we were doing a lot with breweries, so the Thursday evening thing, you'll see a lot. The picnic series is to feature wineries in the area.
Nice.
Great.
That's awesome. So I'll hear a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Board of Selectmen, acting as licensing commissioners, approve the request of Channel Marker Brewing for a one-day wine and malt license for a concert at Stevens Coolidge Place on June 29, 2019, from 4 to 7. A concert, so is that an event that you're charging admission to for that?
Yes.
So, like the Father's Day, would you suggest that you have a?
I think I would. We had to cancel it last year because it thunderstormed, and so the only record I have is 2 years ago with 200 people coming, but I just think the way everything else is going, it'll hopefully escalate.
Okay, so I would make that motion.
Second, anybody?
Sorry.
Yeah.
There's a food truck that's going to be there?
Yes.
Empanada Dada?
Yes.
Just because I was looking into food trucks for another purpose. I don't recall that being one that's licensed, so, no.
But it's
So-
on private property though, right?
Regardless, don't they have to have a one-day,
No,
like,
it's good on private property.
oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
What was that, Laura?
It's okay on private property.
It's okay on private property?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Wait,
Good
they all
pickup.
get a one-day license though, too.
Well, they'll have to have a one-day, like, health
They'll have
permit.
to go to health,
They'll have to
but
go to
not
the Board
you
of
guys,
Health
right.
for
Yeah, I
a
mean,
permit, but
talking to Steve.
a license from the town, you're right, okay, right. They don't need it because of the,
Can I get a clarification on that? Because I do have them all get a one-day permit. Do they not need to?
They get it through the health department.
Okay, good. I just want to
Make
make
sure
sure I'm
they-
not
yeah.
making them do
sorry,
something
they need a
shouldn't
one-day
be.
permit from the health department. They do
Right.
not need a food truck license permit from us.
Oh, right, yeah, they already exist.
Just make sure they start early.
Yeah,
Get it,
yeah.
don't wait till the last minute is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, yep.
You'll be making peanut butter and jelly.
No, when I book them in April, I have them contact the health department.
So
Okay, great. So, sorry, I
are
think you
we
had a motion
keeping,
made in a second.
we're going to have.
Yeah, I made the motion, right?
Okay, right. Second?
I seconded.
You second?
Oh.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes.
Is that the, yeah.
Now
I
you're
think
done.
that, now,
Okay,
okay.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your patience.
Mr. Chair, motion to move out of licensing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All good? Out of license. Okay.
Okay, so we're down to town manager's report. I don't know, Lynn, if you had any comments on any of these items, or if people have questions.
I
for
just have a
Lynn.
comment. I just want to get that. You don't have any? Okay, so my comment is this. It's just come to my attention that because we have not had a really hard freeze this winter, we did, but not consistently, that there is something of a high tick problem. And my concern, frankly, is with Grogan's Field, that there's a playground nearby, there's a lot of overgrowth, that it's something we probably should try to clean up, but I think there's a lot of debris and rocks and stuff under all of that. I'm a little concerned that we could have a real problem.
Okay, well, Grogan's is gonna be under construction, because it's gonna be repaired,
I know.
restored. So there shouldn't be anybody on it.
Yeah, true. So when will that start?
Jim Stanford got the quotes for the work, and he's just gonna start, he got the okay from me to proceed, so I'll talk with him when I get
Yeah,
back from
just get him-
vacation and follow up with it when the construction is
Yeah.
gonna start, but nobody really should be on it.
They shouldn't be on it, but that doesn't mean they won't.
I know.
But it's, yeah, so that's my point. You get it, that
Right.
maybe this sooner rather than later.
Yeah, well, that's the goal, because we don't wanna lose another season.
We don't, and there's just so much stuff going on. I mean,
Yep.
I can really attest to that. Needs to be straightened out. So, that's it. That's my comment.
Okay, so I had a couple of comments that I was going to share, updates, just because it was just referenced just now by Kate. Phil and I went to a meeting at the Stephen Coolidge Place, a public information session that they had last week, and there's another one sometime in June. And I think there was something also at one of the trustees' homes, Brad Wakeman's home recently, to talk about the future of the estate and changes they're proposing. And it was just really interesting to see what they're planning to do in terms of really making that a world-class, public garden space.
Horticulture.
And obviously, lots of changes to accommodate the fact that there's a lot more visitors to the Stephen Coolidge Place than there have been in the past. So I would just encourage anyone to go to their website and look at maybe we can post it as well, the information session. They're having a second one in June, and just thought it was very interesting. And I actually invited the project manager, Elizabeth Carey Sewell, I think I got her name correctly. Sorry, Elizabeth, if I got your name incorrect. I invited her to come to our next meeting, maybe not our next meeting, but we're talking about a lot for our next meeting, but to a meeting in July. Oh, actually, yes, July. We put it on the, so in July, she'll come and present to us an overview of the plans, just so that everyone gets an opportunity to hear about it. I also wanted to mention, because I got a notice from Mass DOT about the fact that they're in the process of certifying the low bidder for the work at the intersection of Mass Ave and Route 125. So I just wanted to share that information, because obviously that work will be starting not too long after that process. I think we can expect that in the fall, early fall. So it's just a communication since I received that. Also, I just want to thank the Department of Public Health for the sunscreen dispensers around at town playgrounds. I thought that was really a great, interesting initiative. I'm sure some of you guys have seen that on Facebook, the Don't Fry Day, where sunscreen is available on the playgrounds. So I just thought that was great. So I want to thank them for that. And I think that's all I had in terms of updates. Are there any other updates?
First of all, in the line of thanking people, the Patriotic Observance Committee yesterday
yes.
did a tremendous job on the Memorial Day observation yesterday. It was great, the parade, the ceremony, the guest speaker, the recognitions, everything was wonderful. So, and then also the Veteran Services as well provided wreaths for all the major memorial stones around town, and were placed on those stones. So, and also for their efforts during the whole memorial observation yesterday, Memorial Day observation, great job. The other thing I have is, is anybody else being bothered by this humming that's in here? Is that new? I've never heard that before, and it's really. Maybe can we have that checked out, because that is really loud now, and it's like it's constant humming.
It's you, you're humming, that's what it is.
Yeah.
No, I can hear it too.
I don't think I'm going crazy here, but I think I can hear the humming.
No, I can hear it.
Yeah.
My comment would be, so I feel like we don't often get to thank people for doing their job over and above, and I just want to comment on Paul Hutchins, our building commissioner, who responded to, this is specifically for town management, just to know, the feedback from the owners of First and Main, where a week and a half ago they had a serious water main break that resulted in Chama Grill closing down. Chama Grill had 10.5 inches of water get into it. That's how much the water level went up inside their building before the doors were opened. And the fact that it happened on a Sunday morning, and the town was so quick with getting that type of emergency notification out so that people were aware, that business owners were aware, but specifically that our town staff responded on a Sunday morning, and the feedback was positive about, again, our fire department, and especially, again, the leadership of our building commissioner. So thank you. I just wanted to forward that along.
Great. Any other final comments? There's so much going on. I feel like there's so much to try and communicate in every meeting, but, all right, if there's nothing else, a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Great.